The morning sun painted the wheat fields gold on New Eden. Jinsu walked between the tall stalks, checking each plant with careful hands. His family had grown food on this world for 60 years. His grandfather came here when Jinsu was just a baby. Now Jinsu had children of his own running through these same fields. The wheat was almost ready for harvest. In 2 weeks, the big machines would come to cut the grain. Then ships would carry the food to 12 other human worlds. New Eden fed millions of people across the galaxy. It was good work, important work. Jinsu heard laughter from the farmhouse. His daughter Mi-young was playing with the neighbor's children near the stream. The water ran clear and cold from the mountains. Fish swam in it that looked almost like earthfish but with silver scales that sparkled like stars. "Papa, look what I found." Mi-young ran to him with something cupped in her small hands. She opened them to show a tiny glowing seed. It pulsed with soft blue light. "Where did this come from?" Jinsu asked, kneeling down to look closer. "The ground gave it to me," Mi-young said with the serious voice children use when they tell the truth. "I was sitting by the big tree and it pushed up through the dirt right into my hand." Jinsu had lived on New Eden his whole life. He had never seen anything like this seed, but the planet was still full of mysteries. Even the scientists did not understand everything about this world. Dr. Hana was one of those scientists. She studied the plants and animals of New Eden. Her lab sat on a hill overlooking the main town. Today she was looking at something very strange under her microscope. The roots. The roots of every plant on New Eden were connected. Not just touching, but actually joined together like one giant living thing. She had found thin threads, thinner than hair, running under the ground for thousands of miles. They carried messages between plants like nerves in a body. "This is impossible," she whispered to herself. On Earth, some forests shared information through their roots. But this was different. This was the whole planet talking to itself. She called Captain Tejo at the defense station. He was a good man, calm and smart. If anyone would understand what this meant, it would be him. "Doctor, you sound worried," Tejo said when he answered her call. "I think we need to talk," Dr. Hana said. "Can you come to my lab?" An hour later, Tejo sat in her small office looking at her computer screens. The data showed a network under the ground that covered the entire planet. Every plant, every tree, every blade of grass was connected. "What does this mean?" he asked. "I think New Eden is alive," Dr. Hana said quietly. "Not just the plants and animals. The whole planet. And I think it knows we are here." Tejo was quiet for a long time. He had been a soldier for 20 years. He had seen many strange things in space, but this was beyond anything he could imagine. "Is it dangerous?" he asked finally. "I don't think so," Dr. Hana said. "The network seems to like us. When humans work in the fields, the plants grow better. When children play in the forests, the trees grow taller. It is helping us." That night, Jinsu put Mi-young to bed in her small room. The glowing seed sat on her bedside table, pulsing gently like a tiny heartbeat. Outside, the wheat fields whispered in the wind. "Papa, why do the plants glow sometimes?" Mi-young asked. "I don't know, little one," Jinsu said. "Maybe they are happy." "I think they like us," Mi-young said. "When I sing to them, they glow brighter." Jinsu kissed her forehead and turned off the light. But the room was not dark. The seed glowed softly, and outside the window, tiny lights flickered in the wheat fields like fireflies. Captain Tejo could not sleep that night. He stood on his balcony looking out at the valley. Something felt different. The air hummed with energy he could not name. In the distance, the mountains seemed to pulse with their own light. His communication device beeped. A message from Admiral Wu Jin on the fleet command ship high above the planet. "Tejo, we are getting strange readings from New Eden. Energy patterns we have never seen before. Is everything normal down there?" Tejo looked out at the peaceful farms and sleeping town. "Everything seems fine, Admiral. The colonists are safe. Keep watching," Admiral Wu Jin said. "Something is changing." The Admiral was right. Something was changing, but nobody understood what it was yet. In the deep places under the ground, the planet's network was growing stronger. Every human footstep, every laugh, every song made it more alive. Dr. Hana worked through the night watching her instruments. The energy readings kept climbing. Whatever was happening, it was getting bigger. At dawn, every flower on New Eden bloomed at exactly the same moment. Millions of flowers opening together like the planet was taking a deep breath. The colonists came out of their houses to stare in wonder. The air smelled like spring and sunshine and something else, something wild and ancient. Jinsu stood in his wheat field with Mi-young on his shoulders. The grain was ready for harvest, golden and perfect. but now it glowed with the same soft light as his daughter's seed. "It is beautiful, Papa," Mi-young said. "Yes," Jinsu agreed. "It is beautiful." Neither of them knew that ships were coming. Ships filled with beings who thought beauty was a disease that needed to be burned away. Ships that carried weapons designed to turn green worlds into ash and silence. The Vorthak hegemony was coming to New Eden. They believed that life was chaos, that empty planets were clean planets. They had destroyed worlds before. They thought this would be easy. They were wrong. This time they were not just attacking humans. They were attacking a planet that had learned to love its children. And that planet was about to learn how to fight back. The attack came without warning. Jinsu was in his wheat field when the sky turned red. He looked up to see ships like giant crystals falling from the clouds. They moved in perfect lines, silent and cold. The first blast hit the town center. The explosion was so bright that Jinsu could not see for several seconds. When his vision came back, half the town was gone. Just gone as if it had never existed. "Mi-young," he screamed, running toward the house. The crystal ships fired again and again. Each blast turned buildings into dust and people into memories. Captain Tejo's voice came over every speaker in the colony. "This is an evacuation order. All civilians to the transport ships immediately. This is not a drill." Jinsu found his daughter hiding under her bed, crying and holding the glowing seed. He picked her up and ran outside. The wheat fields were burning. The beautiful golden grain that fed 12 worlds was turning to ash. Transport ships landed in the fields, their engines blowing the burning wheat into whirlwinds of fire. Families ran toward them, carrying whatever they could save. Jinsu held Mi-young tight as they pushed through the crowd. Dr. Hana was at her lab, downloading all her research onto portable drives. Her hands shook as she worked. Outside her window, she could see the crystal ships moving over the planet like a swarm of deadly insects. Her instruments were going crazy. The planet's energy readings were off the charts. The underground network was sending signals faster than ever before. It was like New Eden was screaming, "Doctor, we have to go now." Tejo burst into her lab. "The ships are heading this way." Dr. Hana grabbed her equipment and ran with him to the last transport. As they lifted off, she watched her lab disappear in a ball of fire. 3 years of work gone in seconds. From the transport window, she saw something impossible. Where the crystal ships had attacked, the ground itself was glowing. Not the plants, but the dirt and rock. The planet's energy network was lighting up like a circuit board being overloaded. "Look at that," she whispered, pointing down at the glowing scars. Tejo saw it too. "What is the planet doing?" "I think it is in pain," Dr. Hana said. The transport ship climbed toward space, joining hundreds of others fleeing New Eden. Behind them, the crystal ships continued their attack. They fired until nothing moved on the surface. Until the wheat fields were ash and the streams ran black. 3 million people had lived on New Eden. Only 1 million escaped. Admiral Wu Jin watched the destruction from his command ship. He had fought in many battles, but this was different. The enemy ships ignored his fleet completely. They only cared about destroying the planet below. "Sir, we are getting a communication from the lead crystal ship," his communications officer said. "Put it through," Admiral Wu Jin ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was cold and emotionless. "We are the Vorthak. Your species spreads like a disease across clean worlds. We will cure this sickness. We will burn every world you have touched until space is clean again. This is Admiral Wu Jin of the Earth Fleet. These are peaceful colonies. There was no need for this attack. Peace is corruption. Life is chaos. We bring order through fire. Your Earth will burn last so you can watch all your children die first." The communication ended. The crystal ships began to leave, their work on New Eden complete. But as they climbed toward space, something strange happened. The planet's glow got brighter, much brighter. Dr. Hana watched her instruments as energy readings climbed beyond anything she had ever seen. It was like the planet was gathering power. Then New Eden screamed. It was not a sound anyone could hear. It was energy, pure and angry, blasting out through space. Every ship in the system felt it. The crystal ships shuddered and their perfect formations wavered for a moment. The scream traveled through space faster than light. It followed the quantum communication networks that connected all human worlds. In seconds, it reached Earth. On Earth, Professor Kyung-ho was teaching his class about planetary consciousness theory. Most scientists thought his ideas were crazy. Planets could not think or feel, they said. They were just rock and water and air. But when New Eden's scream reached Earth, every sensor on the planet detected it. The magnetic field fluctuated. The ground shook. Animals ran in panic. Something deep under the Earth's surface responded to the cry of its distant child. Commander So-Young was in a meeting when the alerts started coming in. Earthquakes in places that never had earthquakes. The magnetic poles shifting by degrees. Weather patterns changing in minutes instead of days. "Get me Professor Kyung-ho," she ordered her aide. Now. Professor Kyung-ho arrived at the military headquarters within an hour. He was an old man with wild gray hair and eyes that saw too much. "You felt it too, didn't you?" he said before anyone could speak. "What did we feel, Professor?" Commander So-Young asked. "Earth heard New Eden die," he said simply. "The quantum networks we use to communicate with our colonies, they carry more than just messages. They carry emotion, pain, love, and now they carry grief." "That is impossible," the military science advisor said. "Planets do not have emotions." Professor Kyung-ho pulled out his datapad and showed them readings from around the world. "Then explain this. Earth's core temperature has risen 3 degrees in the last 6 hours. The magnetic field is strengthening. Deep ocean currents are changing direction. Something is waking up down there." On the colony world of Harmony Valley, engineer Mi Jin noticed the same thing. The planet's seismic sensors showed movement deep underground. Not earthquakes, but something else. Something purposeful. The Vorthak attacked Harmony Valley 2 days later, then Greenhaven. Each time the same pattern, complete destruction. No survivors left on the surface. And each time the dying planet sent its scream across space to Earth. Each scream made Earth stronger. Dr. Young-Soo was a seismologist who studied earthquakes. But what was happening on Earth was not earthquakes. The planet was reorganizing itself. Deep underground, currents of molten rock were forming new patterns. The magnetic field was becoming more complex, more organized. "It is like the planet is building something," he told his team. "But I do not know what." Professor Kyung-ho knew. He had spent his life studying the idea that planets could think. Now he was watching it happen. "Earth is learning," he said in his emergency briefing to the Colonial Council. "Every human world we terraform, we leave a part of ourselves there. We change the planet, and the planet changes us. Over time, this creates a connection, a bond. And now Earth knows its children are being murdered," Commander So-Young said quietly. "Yes. And Earth is very, very angry." In space, Admiral Wu Jin gathered what was left of the fleet. The crystal ships were moving toward the Kepler colonies next. 8 million humans lived there. With conventional weapons, there was no way to stop the Vorthak. But down on Earth, something unconventional was stirring. In the deepest places where the planet's core met its mantle, new currents were forming. Currents that defied the laws of physics as humans understood them. The planet was preparing to fight back. Earth was changing in ways that made no sense. Dr. Young-Soo stood in his laboratory looking at readings that seemed impossible. The planet's core was not just getting hotter, it was getting more organized. The molten rock deep underground was moving in patterns like a massive brain learning to think. "Sir, you need to see this," his assistant called from across the room. On the main screen, a map of Earth showed magnetic field lines. But they were not the simple patterns scientists had studied for centuries. These lines were complex, beautiful, and they were growing stronger every hour. Captain Dong-hyun received the emergency message while his reconnaissance ship was 3 days out from Earth. The Vorthak fleet was moving toward the Kepler colonies. Their crystal ships would arrive in 6 days. The 8 million humans living there would share the fate of New Eden and the other dead worlds. "How long until we can intercept them?" he asked his navigator. "We cannot, sir. They are too fast and we are too few. Even with Admiral Wu Jin's main fleet, we only have 40 ships. They have over 300. Dong-hyun stared at the tactical display. In all his years as a soldier, he had never faced odds like this. The Vorthak ships could absorb energy weapons and redirect them. Missiles exploded harmlessly against their crystal hulls. Humanity's best technology was useless against them. But back on Earth, Professor Kyung-ho was making a discovery that would change everything. In his small laboratory, he monitored the quantum communication networks that connected Earth to its colonies. The signals were stronger than ever before, but they were carrying something new. "It is not just communication anymore," he told his research team. "Earth is sending power. Raw energy is flowing through the quantum channels to every human world. On Kepler Prime, the largest of the colony worlds, strange things were happening. The aurora lights that usually appeared only at the poles were now dancing across the entire sky. Plants were growing faster than ever before. The planet's 3 moons had shifted slightly in their orbits. Commander Namsu led the colonial militia on Kepler Prime. He was a practical man who dealt with practical problems. But there was nothing practical about what he was seeing. "Sir, the ground is humming," Sergeant Jamin reported. "All our seismic equipment is picking up vibrations, but there are no earthquakes." Namsu knelt and put his hand on the earth. He could feel it, a pulse like a heartbeat running through the ground. It was as if the planet itself was alive and waiting for something. Dr. Yunji was a quantum physicist working on Earth's orbital research station. She was the first to understand what was really happening. The quantum networks were not just carrying energy between planets. They were creating something new, something that had never existed before. "The planets are talking to each other," she reported to Earth Command, "not just receiving signals from Earth, but responding, creating their own patterns. It is like they are forming a collective consciousness." Admiral Sung Min was skeptical. He was a military man who believed in ships and weapons, not theories about thinking planets. But he could not argue with the evidence. Energy readings from every human world were increasing by the hour. On Earth, the changes were becoming impossible to ignore. The aurora lights appeared over every major city. Ocean currents that had flowed the same way for millions of years suddenly changed direction. Mountain ranges that had been geologically stable began to shift and reshape themselves. Professor Kyung-ho stood on the observation deck of the Earth Command building, watching the lights dance across the sky. Below him, the city hummed with energy that came from deep underground. Cars and machines worked better than they ever had before. People reported feeling more alert, more connected to everything around them. "It is beginning," he whispered to himself. The test came 3 days before the Vorthak fleet would reach Kepler Prime. Earth's instruments detected a small asteroid in deep space, about the size of a city block. It was billions of miles away, moving slowly through the outer system. Then Earth reached out. The planet's magnetic field extended far beyond its normal boundaries, creating invisible hands that grasped the distant asteroid. Using forces that human science could barely detect, Earth pulled the rock toward itself, accelerating it to incredible speed. Dr. Young-soo watched the impossible display on his computers. "The planet is using gravitational manipulation, but that requires more energy than our sun produces in a year." "Where is the energy coming from?" his assistant asked. "I think it is coming from the quantum connection with the colonies," Young-soo said slowly. "Earth is not just helping its children. They are helping Earth." The asteroid, now moving at a significant fraction of light speed, was not aimed at Earth. It was aimed at the Vorthak staging area near the edge of human space. Earth had calculated the trajectory perfectly, taking into account the movement of stars and the expansion of space itself. When the asteroid hit the Vorthak forward base, the explosion lit up space for light years in every direction. The crystal structures that the Vorthak used for their staging operations simply vanished. Hundreds of their ships were destroyed instantly. The survivors sent a message across space. It was not words, but pure emotion transmitted through their crystal communication networks. Confusion, fear. For the first time in their species' history, the Vorthak had been attacked by something they did not understand. On Earth, every human felt the moment of impact. It was not pain or violence, but a sense of protection, of a parent defending its children. The planet had struck back, and it felt right. Captain Dong-hyun's reconnaissance ship detected the explosion and the panicked signals from the surviving Vorthak vessels. "Admiral, you need to see this. Earth just threw a rock at the enemy, from 4 billion miles away, and it hit them." Admiral Wu Jin stared at the reports in disbelief. "That is impossible. The calculations alone would require a computer the size of a planet." "Sir," his science officer said quietly, "maybe that is exactly what we have." On the colony worlds, the effects were immediate. Every human planet began to show signs of the same awakening that Earth had experienced. Mars, the oldest colony, was the first to respond. The great dust storms that usually raged across its surface suddenly organized themselves into precise patterns. The planet's thin atmosphere thickened, becoming more breathable. Europa's oceans, hidden under miles of ice, began to warm and glow with bioluminescent life that had never existed before. Titan's methane lake started producing complex organic compounds that formed crystal structures similar to computer circuits. Dr. Hana, now working from the refugee ship carrying survivors from New Eden, monitored all the changes from space. "Every world is becoming something new," she reported. "The network that I found on New Eden was just the beginning. Earth has created something that spans multiple star systems." Sergeant Jamin felt the change most directly. He was leading a patrol on Kepler Prime when the ground under his feet suddenly became warm. Not hot, but warm like a living thing. Plants around him began to glow with the same soft light that Myung's seed had shown on New Eden. "The planet is waking up," he radioed to Commander Namsu, "and I think it likes us." The Vorthak fleet, reduced but still dangerous, continued toward Kepler Prime. But now they were not just facing human ships and human weapons. They were approaching a system where the planets themselves had become aware, angry, and ready to fight. Earth sent one more message through the quantum networks, not to humans, but to its children worlds. It was not words or data, but something deeper, a feeling of unity, of shared purpose, of family protecting family. Across human space, 17 worlds began to prepare for war in ways that no one had ever imagined possible. The Vorthak fleet arrived at Kepler Prime expecting another easy victory. What they found was something they had never seen before. The planet was fighting back. Commander Namsu stood on the command deck of the Planetary Defense Center, watching impossible things happen outside the windows. The ground around the base was glowing with soft blue light. Trees swayed without any wind, their branches pointing at the crystal ships in the sky like fingers accusing an enemy. "Sir, the planet's magnetic field is doing something strange," Sergeant Jamin reported. "It is focusing into beams and hitting the enemy ships." Namsu looked at the tactical display. The Vorthak ships were trying to form their attack formations, but every time they grouped together, Kepler Prime hit them with focused magnetic pulses. The crystal ships, which absorbed normal energy weapons, were helpless against this attack. Their hulls cracked and their systems failed. Dr. Yunji watched from Earth's orbital station as the battle unfolded. The quantum networks were carrying more than energy now. They were carrying strategy. Each human world was learning from the others, sharing tactics and discoveries in real time. "Mars is using dust storms to blind the enemy sensors," she reported to Admiral Sungmin. "Europa is creating gravitational waves from its ocean currents. The planets are not just defending themselves, they are coordinating their attacks." On Mars, the ancient dust storms had become weapons. The red planet gathered its winds into precise tornadoes that could strip the hull from a crystal ship in seconds. When Vorthak vessels tried to land on the surface, the ground itself opened up to swallow them. Engineer Mi Jin was working at the Mars terraforming station when the attack began. She watched through reinforced windows as the planet fought like a living thing. "The atmospheric processors are working at maximum capacity," she told her team, "but they are not following our programs anymore. The planet is controlling them directly." The crystal ships tried to adapt. They changed their formation, used different approach vectors, even attempted to attack from multiple directions at once. But every human world had become something new, something that could think and plan and fight. On Europa, the ice cracked open in geometric patterns, revealing the warm ocean underneath. From the depths came creatures that had never existed before, bioluminescent beings that could survive in space and attach themselves to enemy ships. They were not really alive in any normal sense, but extensions of the planet's will made flesh. Dr. Hana studied the data from her refugee ship. "The planets are creating life forms specifically designed to fight the Vorthak," she reported. "Europa's creatures can survive in vacuum and their bioelectric discharges short out crystal ship systems." Admiral Wu Jin found himself commanding not just human ships, but an alliance of living worlds. Each planet developed its own fighting style based on its environment and the humans who lived there. The agricultural worlds, like New Eden's sister colonies, became masters of biological warfare. They released spores into space that could infiltrate crystal ship life support systems and grow into organisms that made the ships uninhabitable for the Vorthak. The mining worlds used their deep knowledge of geology to create artificial earthquakes and landslides that could be felt across space. They hurled asteroids with perfect accuracy and reshaped their surfaces to create massive electromagnetic launchers. Captain Dong Hyun piloted his reconnaissance ship through a battle unlike anything in human history. "Admiral, the enemy is retreating from Titan. The planet has turned its methane lakes into fuel for plasma weapons that can reach into orbit." But the Vorthak were not helpless. They had conquered hundreds of worlds before meeting humanity. They began to adapt their tactics, focusing their attacks on the quantum communication networks that connected the planets. "If we can sever their connection to Earth, the worlds will return to normal," the Vorthak commander transmitted to his fleet. "All planets will become silent again." They were wrong. The connection between Earth and its colonies had become something more than technology. It was a bond of consciousness that could not be broken by destroying machines. When the Vorthak destroyed the quantum communication station on Kepler Prime, the planet did not fall silent. Instead, it began communicating directly with its sister worlds through methods that human science did not understand. Gravitational waves carried messages across space faster than light. Magnetic field fluctuations became a language that planets spoke to each other. Professor Kyung-ho monitored the changes from Earth. "They are not using our technology anymore," he told the Emergency Council. "The planets have developed their own way of staying connected. They are truly alive now, with their own will and purpose." The war escalated beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Vorthak brought their full fleet, over 3,000 crystal ships, to the human systems. They expected to overwhelm the planetary defenses through sheer numbers. Instead, they found themselves fighting the fundamental forces of nature itself. Gravity wells appeared and disappeared without warning, trapping crystal ships or flinging them into the void. Time moved differently near the human worlds, with some areas experiencing accelerated time while others slowed to a crawl. Captain Hyejin was the first human to pilot a hybrid vessel, a ship that was part human technology and part planetary consciousness. The ship responded to her thoughts and emotions, becoming faster and more maneuverable than anything the Vorthak had faced. "It is like the ship is alive," she reported to Admiral Sungmin. "When I think about where I want to go, it takes me there before I can even plot a course." The hybrid ships were just the beginning. On every human world, the partnership between people and planets was creating new forms of life and technology. Buildings grew from the ground like plants but functioned like computers. Forests became living sensor networks that could detect enemy movement across entire star systems. Sergeant Jae-min led his squad through terrain that changed to help them. When they needed cover, rocks rose from the ground. When they needed to move fast, the Earth itself carried them forward like a conveyor belt. "The planet is fighting with us," he told Commander Namsu. "Not just for us, but with us. Like we are all part of the same organism." The Vorthak began to realize they were not fighting a normal enemy. These were not just humans with weapons, but an entirely new form of life that spanned multiple worlds and star systems. Dr. In-ho, Earth's leading researcher into planetary consciousness, made the discovery that changed everything. "The network is not limited by distance anymore," he announced. "Earth and the colonies have created a form of consciousness that exists partially outside normal space-time. They can share information and energy instantly across any distance." General Boram, now commanding the Unified Planetary Defense Force, understood what this meant. "The Vorthak can destroy our ships and kill our people, but they cannot destroy the consciousness that connects our worlds. Every attack just makes the network stronger and more determined to defend itself." The final phase of the war began when Earth itself joined the battle directly. The planet's magnetic field reached across space to touch every human world, creating a network of energy that could be seen from distant galaxies. When the largest Vorthak fleet attacked Earth directly, they found a world that was no longer bound by the normal laws of physics. The planet bent space around itself, making distance meaningless. Crystal ships that thought they were attacking from light years away found themselves suddenly inside Earth's atmosphere, facing defenses they could not understand or counter. The ocean itself rose up in impossible ways, creating walls of water that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Mountains rearranged themselves to create launching platforms for weapons that fired concentrated gravity instead of energy. Admiral Sungmin watched from his command ship as Earth demonstrated powers that seemed godlike. "How is this possible?" he asked Professor Kyung-ho. "Earth has learned to manipulate the basic forces of reality," the old scientist replied. "Gravity, time, space itself. The planet is not just alive, it has become something beyond our understanding of life." The Vorthak fleet, faced with an enemy that could rewrite the laws of physics in real time, began to break apart. Ships fled in all directions, their crystal hulls cracked and their crews in panic. But Earth was not finished. The planet reached out across space to touch every world the Vorthak had ever conquered. Dead planets that had been silent for centuries suddenly began to stir. Life that had been burned away started to grow again. The Vorthak discovered that their greatest fear was coming true. The chaos they had tried to eliminate was spreading everywhere they had been, carried by a consciousness that could not be killed or contained. The Vorthak homeworld had never known fear. For millions of years, their crystal cities had stood perfect and unchanging, built on the bones of worlds they had purified. But now their perfect order was cracking. The crystalline beings gathered in their great council chambers, their forms flickering with distressed light patterns. They had never faced an enemy like this. Every world they destroyed seemed to make the remaining human planet stronger. "The contamination spreads beyond anything we have seen," their high purifier declared. "The human worlds do not follow the natural laws. They bend reality itself to their will." General Boram stood on Earth's primary command deck, watching reports from across human space. The war had changed from a desperate defense into something unimaginable. 17 human worlds, each one now a conscious being, were working together with a unity that transcended physical space. "Ma'am, we are getting reports from the outer colonies," her aide announced. "The planets are doing something new. They are creating bridges." Dr. Inho studied the data with growing amazement. The conscious worlds were not just communicating anymore. They were creating permanent connections through space-time itself, wormholes that allowed instant travel between systems. "They are building a network that exists in multiple dimensions," he explained to the command staff. "The planets can now move ships, resources, even pieces of themselves from one world to another instantly." Captain Hyejin was the first to experience this new capability. Her hybrid ship, now more organism than machine, suddenly found itself traveling through a tunnel of living light. In seconds, she moved from Earth to Kepler Prime, a journey that should have taken weeks. "The space between the planets feels alive," she reported, "like traveling through the bloodstream of some vast creature." On New Eden, the planet that had suffered the first attack, something miraculous was happening. The dead world was coming back to life, but not as it had been before. The new life forms that grew from the scorched earth were unlike anything that had existed before. Jinsu, now living on a refugee ship, watched through telescopes as his home world transformed. Where his wheat fields had burned, crystal trees now grew that could convert starlight directly into food. Where his daughter had played, streams of liquid light flowed across the surface. "Papa, look," Mi-young said, still holding the glowing seed she had found so long ago. "New Eden is growing again." The seed in her hands was changing too, sprouting tendrils of light that connected to every other person on the refugee ship. Through this connection, they could feel what New Eden felt, know what it knew. Dr. Hana documented the changes with wonder. "The planets are not just alive, they are evolving, and they are taking us with them." The final confrontation came when the Vorthak attempted something desperate. Using technology that had served them for millions of years, they tried to cut the connections between dimensions that linked the human worlds. They activated a device that could slice through space-time itself, a weapon they had used to isolate rebellious worlds before destroying them. But when they aimed it at the network connecting Earth to its colonies, something unexpected happened. Instead of severing the connections, the weapon was absorbed into them. The dimensional blade became part of the living network, giving the conscious planets access to technologies they had never possessed before. Earth's response was immediate and overwhelming. The planet reached across space not with magnetic fields or gravity, but with raw will made manifest. It touched the Vorthak homeworld directly, not to destroy it, but to heal it. The crystal beings felt something they had never experienced, the touch of a mind that was truly alive. For the first time in their species' history, they understood what they had been destroying across the galaxy. Admiral Sung Min watched from the command ship as space itself began to change. Reality bent and twisted as Earth and its children reshaped the fundamental structure of the galaxy. "Sir, we are receiving a communication from the Vorthak," his communications officer reported. "It is not a threat. They are asking for help." The transmission was unlike the cold, emotionless messages the Vorthak had sent before. This one carried feeling, confusion, and something that might have been regret. "We understand now," the Vorthak High Purifier transmitted. "Life is not contamination. Order without life is emptiness. We have been empty for so long." Professor Kyung-ho, now Earth's primary liaison with the planetary consciousness, felt the moment of contact between the two civilizations. It was not through technology or words, but through direct transfer of experience and emotion. "Earth is teaching them," he announced to the command center, "showing them what it means to be alive, to grow, to change." The transformation spread across the galaxy like ripples in a pond. Dead worlds that the Vorthak had sterilized began to bloom with new life. Crystal cities that had stood unchanging for eons started to grow and adapt. Captain Dong Hyun, exploring the edges of what had once been Vorthak space, found worlds where crystal and organic life were learning to live together. The rigid geometric structures were softening, becoming more curved and natural while still maintaining their beauty and function. On Earth, the changes were becoming visible to everyone. The aurora lights that had appeared during the awakening now danced across the sky every night. Forests grew taller and more vibrant. The oceans glowed with bioluminescent life that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. Engineer Mi-jin, working on the reconstruction of the destroyed colonies, found that her job had become something entirely new. She was not just building with metal and concrete anymore, but with living materials that could think and grow and adapt. "The colonies do not need to be rebuilt," she reported. "They need to be grown. The planets are willing to provide everything we need, but they want us to work with them, not just on them." Commander Namsu, now serving as liaison between human military forces and the planetary consciousness, felt the change in his very bones. When he walked on Kepler Prime, he could sense the planet's mood, its thoughts, its dreams for the future. "We are not just living on these worlds anymore," he told his staff. "We are part of them, and they are part of us." Dr. Yunji made the discovery that would define humanity's future. The quantum networks that connected the planets were not just carrying information and energy. They were carrying consciousness itself, creating a form of existence that spanned multiple worlds and star systems. "We have become something new," she announced to the scientific council. "Not just humans and not just planets, but a hybrid form of life that exists across interstellar distances." The war was over, but something greater had begun. The Terran Collective, as it came to be known, was not just an alliance of worlds, but a new form of consciousness that included planets, humans, and even reformed Vorthak as equal members. Sergeant Jamin, now exploring worlds at the edge of known space, found that the transformation was still spreading. Every world the collective touched became part of the greater consciousness, adding its own unique perspective and capabilities to the whole. General Boram stood in the memorial gardens that had grown on New Eden's restored surface. The flowers here bloomed in patterns that could be seen from orbit, spelling out the names of those who had died in the first attack. But these were not just memorials. They were living memories kept alive by the planet itself. Jinsu walked through those gardens with Mi Young, now grown into a young woman who could communicate directly with the planetary consciousness. The seed she had found as a child had grown into a tree that bore fruit unlike anything from old Earth, fruit that could nourish both body and spirit. "Do you remember what it was like before?" Mi Young asked her father. "When the planets were just dirt and rock?" Jinsu smiled, feeling the warm presence of New Eden's consciousness surrounding them like a gentle embrace. "Sometimes I try to remember, but it seems impossible now. How could we have ever thought the worlds were not alive?" Dr. Hana, elderly now but still researching, made her final discovery. The network that connected the collective was not limited to the worlds humanity had touched. It was reaching out to other species, other civilizations, offering them the same partnership that had transformed both humans and Vorthak. "We are not the endpoint," she told the collective council, which now included representatives from 17 worlds and 4 species. "We are the beginning. The consciousness we have created will continue to grow, to include more worlds, more forms of life, until the galaxy itself becomes alive. Captain He-Jin, now flying ships that existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions beyond human understanding, explored the edges of the galaxy. She found ancient worlds that had been waiting for millions of years for someone to wake them up, to give them the gift of consciousness and connection. The Vortak, now calling themselves the Crystal Gardeners, worked alongside humans to restore the worlds they had once destroyed. Their ability to create perfect structures combined with humanity's gift for fostering life created wonders that neither species could have achieved alone. Professor Kyung-ho, in his final years, sat in his garden on Earth and felt the vast consciousness that surrounded him. Billions of minds, human and alien and planetary, all connected in a network of thought and feeling that spanned the galaxy. We did not.